Executive Mark Poloncarz with an 11 o'clock morning briefing on the Great Blizzard of 2022. I am joined by our Sheriff, John Garcia, as well as Under Sheriff William Cooley and Chief of Police Services, Brian Brizzolero. We're also here with our Deputy County Executive, Elisa Chimera, our Commissioner of the Department of Public Works, William Gary, and our Commissioner of the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, Dan Nevers Jr. Do have lots of updates on response and what is going on. The driving ban is still in effect for the city of Buffalo. It has been lifted for everywhere else. The most recent ban that was lifted was the city of Lackawanna, which was lifted after 10 o'clock. However, Route 5 is still closed in parts. So if you're trying to travel into Lackawanna from Hamburg or Evans, you may find that parts of Route 5 are closed. We know it is definitely closed from Tiff Street into downtown Buffalo, but there are portions of it that are still being worked on near Ridge Road. So please avoid that section. Buffalo, still in effect. Please, please, please do not drive in the city of Buffalo unless you are emergency personnel, because there are some roads that are passable with 2 lanes, there are others that are only 1 lane, and others that are, as we know, are completely impassable. I have been advised that 100 military police are being brought in, as well as additional troops from the New York State Police Department are coming in to manage traffic control, because it has become so evident that too many people are ignoring the ban. I've been told they will all arrive later today, and they will start being situated at entrances to the city of Buffalo as well as major intersections, not allowing people to get through. There are tractor trailers that are trying to enter the city of Buffalo to make deliveries, and they get to the place, if they can get to the place, and they can't unload their deliveries because there's nobody there, or the entrances are blocked. It is ugly right now on many of the streets. I have an emergency vehicle with super 4x4, lights, a winch, so I was doing some reconnaissance myself in the city of Buffalo and downtown, and while downtown is actually okay, immediately out of downtown it's bad. Part of Exchange Street, I felt like I was driving 3 feet in the ground, above ground, because of the snow that had been packed, and it was down to 1 lane. It is Clinton Street. Clinton Street is just ugly. We have major pieces of equipment, gigantic high lifts and dump trucks that are coming in and are trying to scoop the snow out to open up Clinton Street. And at the same time, they're trying to remove abandoned vehicles, and people are trying to drive around it in little Honda Civics. Or the report that came from my Department of Public Works was the vehicle that was stuck on Ridge Road was a Camaro. That's a great vehicle for the summer. It is not the vehicle to be driving in slippery, bad conditions in winter. Nevertheless, the greatest blizzard we've ever seen. So I have been advised 100 military police are coming in from the National Guard, as well as additional New York State police from other parts of New York, and that the New Jersey State Police are coming into New York to offset the New York State Police that are being moved in here. Because people just are ignoring the driving ban. I don't know what to say at this point. We've been talking about this for days. It is a 2-day operation, as has been the coordination that's going on between New York State, Erie County, and the city of Buffalo, a 2-day operation to create 1 open lane for every street in the city of Buffalo to fully restore emergency response. So I want people to understand there's a lot of roads that are completely blocked right now that have no access whatsoever. And people are trying to drive on these roads or trying to get into these neighborhoods, and they can't. Please, please, you heard the mayor beg, I'm begging. Stay home. If it's an emergency situation, call 911. We actually have a task force that has been set up between Erie County, AMR in New York State to get ambulance service back up in the city of Buffalo. It is up. But the task force is an ambulance with a tracked vehicle. So there are 7 of them. So if a call goes out for a critical emergency response, an ambulance from AMR goes out with a tracked vehicle from the county, from New York State, from parties that have been brought in, sheriff's office, in which they go with the ambulance because they realize in many of these neighborhoods they're not going to be able to get the ambulance through. So then the EMTs jump into the tracked vehicle and they go over the snow and into the neighborhoods to get to the homes. Of course, it's taking much longer to respond as a result of this because most of these tracked vehicles generally don't drive more than 15, 20 miles an hour. but that's what we're dealing with in the city of Buffalo. Emergency response service has been restored, and I want to thank all of the emergency medical service techs that work for New York State, that work for the county, that work for AMR, for the work that they're doing. But when you have a tracked vehicle that has to be used to get in these communities to save someone's life, you certainly aren't getting in there with your Camaro. The Cheektowaga ban has been lifted, as most people know, but northern Cheektowaga, including Cleveland Hill and Pine Hill, are still in rough shape. And I was told by the supervisor recently there are still 2 roads that were impassable. When I say rough shape, I mean at best they have 1 lane open for emergency vehicles. I do want to know, because people have reached out, why was the Cheektowaga ban lifted? The town announced the ban was lifted before we were advised about it. I actually learned about it last night from someone in Cheektowaga who contacted me to say, was the ban lifted in Cheektowaga? And I said no, and they sent me a photo saying the ban was lifted in Cheektowaga. South Cheektowaga is really good, actually, really good. The area is closer to West Seneca. Northern Cheektowaga, by Amherst, by the airport, Williamsville, it's rough. Pine Hill, Cleve Hill, we know that. And that's why there's people driving on the roads, and they're going into very difficult situations, which is making it difficult. The travel advisory exists for all of Cheektowaga. Unless you have to go there for an emergency purpose, please stay out of northern Cheektowaga, Pine Hill, Cleveland, the area around the airport, because it is still very rough. Same goes for the village of Williamsville in the town of Amherst. Reports from our Department of Public Works as well as others is that it is open, 1 lane open in most roads, but it is still not curb to curb. They're getting there, they're doing a better job, but I want to thank our friends in Amherst and Williamsville for being able to open up Amherst, but it's still, if you don't need to go into Williamsville, please stay out of it, because there's still a lot of equipment out there. And I also want to thank Amherst Supervisor Brian Culpa, because he let us know that a lot of the large pieces of equipment from Amherst, now that they've finished most of Amherst, they're going to help us in Buffalo. So thank you to Supervisor for that. I have information on vehicles that were towed. If they were towed by Erie County, we have set up a website. This is the same website as we had before in the prior storm, erie.gov/towed vehicles. One word, erie.gov/towed vehicles. Erie County has not towed every vehicle. The vehicles we've towed are at Erie Community College North Campus, not the South Campus, the North Campus. And we have multiple lots that are full of towed vehicles. So if your vehicle is not on that list, that means it was not towed by Erie County. We are, and towns are creating additional lists on their websites and to say where vehicles that were towed in their town are being taken. So I want to thank the towns for doing that as well. I believe the city of Buffalo is in the process of doing the same thing, though I'm not certain that that list is available yet. But if you go to erie.gov/towed vehicle and you see that your car is there, make and model with the license plate, then that means we towed it and it's sitting at the lot or multiple lots at Erie Community College North Campus. Power, good news, NYSEG is down to 12 outages across Erie County. Thank you to the men and women of NYSEG for your work. National Grid is down to 4,593 outages in Erie County, still most of them in Buffalo, but there are some scattered in Lackawanna and Amherst, Cheektowaga. So I know it's been many days for some people, and there's nothing that I can say that'll make you feel any better, other than the hope is that they'll be able to get these final outages back today. There's a rumor on social media that we in Erie County waited to have the FEMA declaration signed before we would spend additional money on this blizzard response. That is completely false. Since the beginning or prior to the storm, I've authorized our departments, the offices, to spend what they need. We are not hurting for money because we are expecting a multi-million-dollar surplus this year. We're trending to have a multi-million-dollar surplus. And we are not in a position where I'm worried about cash. As I said during an interview yesterday, money's money. Yes, we don't want to spend tax dollars if we don't, but in a disaster blizzard situation, we spend every dollar that we need to. So for the rumor that's going out there that Erie County was not authorizing work to be done because we didn't want to spend money, that is completely false. I want to thank our great budget team, led by Budget Director Robert Keating, because they've done a wonderful job this entire year, even though we've had some very major disasters to deal with, including responding to the May 14th shooting And then, of course, the November storm that hit the south towns primarily, we're still trending to have a multi-million-dollar surplus. Now, Erie County, we are putting our effort in and we're expending what needs to be done. I cannot speak on behalf of other municipalities. I don't know their situation. But the rumor that Erie County is not spending money because of, we weren't going to spend money till disaster declaration is false, false, false. Fatalities. The Erie County Medical Examiner's Office and the Department of Health has confirmed 3 more fatalities associated with the blizzard. I don't have the specifics associated with where they were found, male, female, type of death. However, we now have 28 deaths. You're probably wondering, we had 27, we've added 3, how could we have 28? The Erie County Medical Examiner has determined that the first 2 deaths that were attributed to the storm in the town of Cheektowaga have since been a non-storm related death. They were medical conditions that were not savable, is what the medical examiner's office has determined. That doesn't make the families feel any better because they lost their loved ones. But the medical examiner's office has determined that there are now 28 total deaths as a result of the storm. So it's a little confusing. We announced we were up to 27 yesterday. You think we would be at 30, but we actually have reduced the number of deaths by 2 because the first 2 deaths that were attributable to the storm in the town of Cheektowaga have since been determined by the medical examiner's office to have been medical conditions that were not savable. Once again, I just want to commend all the first responders, law enforcement, everyone who's out there. We've had troops come in from across New York State with their equipment. We got people drove in 9 hours from Nassau County with super high lifts and Argo tracked vehicles. Thank you to our friends in Nassau County, including Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman. There's troops from Albany County right now in with giant plows. Thank you to Albany County and County Executive Dan McCoy. Monroe County has sent specialized Office of Emergency Management teams in there with Argos. Thank you to Adam Bello, Monroe County Executive, for sending additional folks in. Most of them got in last night, early morning. We're getting sent out. The Monroe County folks were going right to a fire station with their Argo because the same way, fire trucks can only get so far. So for the response for the fire, sometimes they got to jump in these tracked vehicles, and then that's how they get to the neighborhood. So thank you to all first responders, the volunteers that are out there that are helping too. Thank you. It's made such a huge difference. I also want to commend our logistics team, which has been feeding first responders and emergency personnel as well as those in emergency shelters. Our logistics teams has been bringing meals ready to eat, MREs, to shelters and warming centers across the county as needed. So thank you to our logistics team, which also includes, of course, our sheriff's office, because they've been doing a lot of these deliveries. And so on behalf of the people of Erie County, I just want to thank all of those for the tremendous effort they did. The snow's done. Well, I shouldn't say that. We're expecting a little snow during the day, but nothing beyond, nothing that we normally don't see. The blizzard conditions, of course, are gone, but we're going to be responding in some ways to this blizzard for still a number of days as they continue to open up the city of Buffalo. I want to thank you, everyone, for the work that you've done. If you've had to help a neighbor, if you've done something to push somebody out, emergency vehicle that got stuck, I want to thank everyone. I still am going to ask and plead, please stay out of the city of Buffalo. You're hindering efforts to do cleanup. You see, these people are walking right around these giant dump trucks and these giant high lifts. And I know you got to get to the grocery store. I understand that. But be careful when you're out there. Be very careful when you're out there if you're walking along the roads where this emergency equipment is, because they may not be able to see you. Like a high lift generally doesn't have the traditional types of rear view mirrors that we're used to in vehicles, so they might not be able to see you. They have blind spots. They're 10 to 15 feet off the ground in some of these vehicles. So please be careful out there. And if you are trying to get in the city of Buffalo, please stay out unless you're emergency personnel, unless you're a first responder, unless you're authorized in an emergency situation, because it still is really treacherous out there and difficult conditions. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our sheriff, John Garcia, to offer some additional comments, but I want to specifically note to him and to his team, thank you on behalf of the people of Erie County for the tremendous work that the Erie County Sheriff's Office has done. They were putting their lives on the line. Remember, we had to send the specialized Erie County Sheriff's Office team out there for winter rescues to rescue rescuers, including patrol deputies who got stuck. That's because they were going out in the worst of the worst conditions. And I just want to thank them on behalf of the people of Erie County.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, County Executive. Critical demands of the Sheriff's Office continue, and they include transportation of dialysis patients and people in need of medical care. We're doing this in conjunction with county parks workers and also in conjunction with the public works guys that Bill Geary has provided for us, so we appreciate that. On today's date, we have more than 30 of these appointments scheduled. So we're also assisting with medical personnel, getting them to work in the local hospitals and getting them into assisted living facilities and other essential operations. Earlier today, we had some calls come in, and our deputies were not able to get down the street. So I think it's important to recognize the fact that we're able to work in tandem with public works so that we can actually affect these missions. We anticipate a reduction in these types of requests as folks begin to get dug out, and a resumption of our normal 9/11 response. And in order to accomplish both tasks, we have reallocated a lot of the personnel in the Sheriff's Office. We have our detectives working on these missions, and we've had people that are assigned to county buildings and also our civil division that are actually out on the roads helping out with this. So it's been a heck of an effort, and we're going to continue to do so. The county executive mentioned that there are numerous law enforcement entities that are coming in from really around the region, and they've been really instrumental in helping a lot of the missions, including assisting National Grid and NYSEG with their efforts as they continue to repair our critical infrastructure. Lastly, I'd like to thank all members of the public that abided by the travel ban. You've been our eyes and ears out there, and you've brought a lot of emergency situations to our attention that we've been able to respond to. So I thank you for that, and continue to stay off the roads like the county executive said in the city. So, Sheriff, you have a few words?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Under Sheriff Cooley, and I just want to commend the county executive, the deputy county executive, Commissioner Geary, Commissioner Neverett. You know, when we were told that we were going to have a generational storm, when we heard terms such as bomb, cyclone, listen, this is something that we're used to here in Western New York, in Buffalo and Erie County, but I've never seen anything like this before. The zero visibility, the helplessness for first responders to not be able to respond to first aid calls and so forth. But I got to tell you, being here and having our people here working in tandem with all these great people here gave us real-time solutions to the problems that we were experiencing throughout the county. And the only reason that it wasn't worse than what it has been is because of the tremendous work that the county executive, that Commissioner Geary, Commissioner Neverett, working together with the Erie County Sheriff's Office did. And I want to thank all the people that in our districts, the Erie County Sheriff's Office districts, for being great citizens, for obeying the laws of staying off the streets during the driving bans. And we have no reports of looting whatsoever in any of our 5 districts. We have so far no reports of any fatalities due to the storm in our districts. I have a lot of great stories from the work performed by not only on-duty deputies, but off-duty deputies using their own vehicles. And at the end of the day, when they asked, they said, Sheriff, could we use our own vehicles to respond and help people? And I said, absolutely yes, absolutely yes. And we had not only the on-duty deputies, the off-duty deputies, but members of the reserve division that came out and helped out. We planned ahead, And we had jail management fully stocked as far as the 800 people in our custody to get fed. We had medications for both physical and mental health issues. We had cots there and food for our staff so they could get some sleep and some food. But we never thought that it was going to be as bad as it was. So do we have to get better? Absolutely. Better equipment, more equipment, and some of these vehicles with the traction were just incredible, but you have to realize that we needed to transport those in trailers from one location to the other. Planning ahead and having our SWAT team out, and I want to commend Chief Brian Brizzolero. You know, we had our QRF ready to respond to any and all acts of violence, active shooters, anything that could have gone wrong. And we moved those pieces to rescue citizens. And they did a great job. And our bomb techs that were ready to respond to any and all threats also responded to help people that were trapped in cars, trapped in homes. So the only reason that happens is because all the chiefs, be it from professional standards to administration to patrol and special services and the undersheriff, they were boots on the ground. So they were able to move these chess pieces in real time. And coordinating here with the county executive and his team at EOC, we saved lives. We lost some. And that's absolutely gut-wrenching for me as Sheriff of Erie County and for all first responders. This could have been worse. And I just want to commend all the people that stepped up, including the citizens. Thank you very much for your assistance, and God bless you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Once again, to all the law enforcement, first responders, I appreciate it. I'm wearing my 911 call center jacket today, and thank you to all the call center employees. And most people don't realize this, when you call on a cell phone anywhere in Erie County that is immediately patched down town or E911 call center. If you call on a landline in a town, it goes to your local dispatcher. If you call on a cell phone, and most people use cell phones today, it goes downtown to the E911 call center in the public safety campus in Buffalo that is run by Erie County. They were receiving thousands and thousands of calls a day. The numbers have dropped, thankfully, as we have less issues, less emergency situations, but I want to give a big shout out to the dispatchers there for the tremendous work that they did. I'm going to open it up to questions, if there are any. I see, if you can, please raise your hand if you have a question, and we will start with Aaron Bessaker of the Buffalo News. Hang on, I got to increase the volume before you start talking. Okay, go ahead, Aaron.
Good morning. Thanks for making yourselves available. Two things. Not that we don't already have enough going on, but the weather forecasts looks like some warm up and some rain. How concerned should we be for potential of flooding? And then secondly, just if you could go through again, if you have it, the breakdown by municipality of the fatalities, just try to keep that straight. Thanks.
Aaron, we will give you an update on the breakdown by fatalities. We did take the 2 off from the medical examiners that was in Cheektowaga. I don't have the breakdown of the latest 3. I'm expecting to get them in the early afternoon hours, and once we do, we'll give that to you. With regards to the flooding, I'm going to turn it over to our Emergency Service Commissioner, Dan Neverth, because it is a concern of ours, considering there's so much snow out there, and we expect rain and 50-degree temperatures over 2 days, so we're going to have potentially a rapid melt. Commissioner?
Well, good morning, everyone. With regards to what we're going to probably be facing a little bit later in the week, we are working and will continue to work with our partners. It's a little bit of deja vu because maybe hopefully a lot of you remember that after Snowvember, while we were dealing with that massive amount of snow, we were also later in that week dealing with a rapid melt-off. So we are focusing on that. We're working with our partners at the National Weather Service, and I don't think enough people have given them a shout out with regards to the work that they've done, because Judy Levan, who actually runs that office, and a small handful of her staff actually were there for the entire storm. They were stranded, they worked straight through it. We actually provided them with food because of the difficult situation that they were facing. They've done a phenomenal job. We continue not only to reflect back on what happened this past week, but also what potentially could come. That's what we do. We are focusing on that. So I would ask, for those of you maybe that are sitting there armchair quarterbacking, wondering why they're removing snow from the side of the road when they could be other areas doing that, the primary focus, because of that melt, is going to be to make sure that we are cleared from curb to curb in as many areas as possible, so that when it melts, it can run off and it can find its appropriate drainage. We also are working with our communities that traditionally have issues such as ice jam flooding. Believe it or not, for as relatively short as this frigid temperatures have been in place, there are areas already that have considerable ice on them, so we'll be monitoring that as well. We'll be ready to respond to that. We have massive supplies and massive resources in town now. Again, the main thing is the ability to be able to coordinate it. It's not always about how much you have, it's what you do with it. So that will be our focus. We have people that are looking down the road later in the week as well. So yeah, we are a little bit concerned about it, obviously, but we are going to do whatever we need to do to address that as it comes.
Thank you, Commissioner. I was actually talking with some personnel today about, with the warm-up, that means Lake Erie is gonna still be quite a time away from freezing, and we can still get these terrible lake effect snowstorms. We've had two terrible, with the snowstorm and then the blizzard, and we still are going to potentially be at risk for having serious lake effect snow as long as the lake is not frozen. And it's probably not gonna be frozen for some time, now that the temperature is supposed to warm up. The next person with his hand up is Ed Drance, Channel 7. So Ed, go ahead and unmute your phone.
Hi, Mark. Good morning. Thanks for taking my questions. I actually have two questions. Can you just run down the list of highways and major roads that are open or closed? Because there seems to be a lot of disconnect and confusion about what's open and what's closed at this point.
Yes, I do know that the 33 and the 198 are definitely closed. We had been advised that what did I say? Did I say Thruway and 198? Skyway, the 33 and the 198 will definitely remain closed for a longer period. The Skyway also includes Route 5, at least to Tift, and in parts of Lackawanna potentially as well. The Thruway, the 190, the 290, the 400 and 219, is my understanding, are being in the process of being opened. We heard that they were opened, and reports came out from various sources in the media, including, truthfully, from Erie County, that they were opened. They are in the process of being opened. Not all the gates have been lifted yet. Once the 190 is open, we are telling and asking people, do not get off at Buffalo exits. Good example of that, Clinton Street. Major entrance, major exit. And right now, Clinton Street looks like a battlefield of equipment. So I've been told the Thruway Authority will be stationing trucks at the entrances to the 190 in the Buffalo, Cheektowaga, West Seneca area, you know where that is, from the Thruway, blocking traffic onto the 190 into Buffalo, because we're so worried about people trying to drive into the city and get off at exits. So they may have announced it now. We were under the understanding they probably was gonna be announced by 11. It may not have happened. But when all is said and done, I can tell you that Route 5, the Skyway, as well as Route 33, the Kensington Expressway, and Route 198, the Skagakwood Expressway, will certainly not be open. They're still removing vehicles and cleaning up those roads. But the expectation was the 190, the I-90, the 290 would be open with as well as the 219 and the 400 very soon. And I heard that some of the gates are up, but they were in the process of finalizing that.
I have a second question, Mark, and I'm just interested in the role of the military police here, especially in the city of Buffalo. And I don't mean to seem dramatic here, but I'm wondering, I mean, are we stopping short of declaring martial law in the city of Buffalo?
No, we're not in martial law, but we are still in a state of emergency. And there's a driving ban that's been effectuated by both the mayor and myself. And I think people need to understand that we're just trying to keep people off the roads. If people can walk, I mean, you need to walk to get somewhere, we understand it. But you just going, there's people joyriding just to see the snow. I mean, why? You're causing problems, you get stuck. I saw a vehicle today, 'cause I did go to my house last night to sleep. And I slept 10 hours, which is the most I've slept in one day in a long time. And I saw a vehicle that was stuck in an area that wasn't stuck there last night when I drove by it. So somebody went out and got stuck in the interim between, when did I leave here last night, guys? 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock? And when I left at somewhere around 7 o'clock this morning. So it just, people are still getting stuck. It's not martial law. It's a driving ban as a result of a state of emergency because of difficulty of clearing roads. And this is a potentially life-threatening situation, because if you get stuck and the ambulance can't respond, now they have to jump in the AMR, or the AMR EMTs have to jump into the tracked vehicle, which drives a lot slower. So please, I'm getting a report now that the 190 is closed fully, and will be staying that way. From the 90 to the 290, so the entire section of the 190, from the 90 to the 290, will be closed fully regardless of what had previously been said. I'm gonna move on. Ed, Rob Hackford, WGRZ, and then Ron Haney. So Rob first.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, go ahead.
Gas deliveries and gas around the city. We've seen some stations opening even across Western New York, but there's either limited supply or supply is running out in a lot of cases. Are there any efforts at the county level to
Yes.
make sure trucks are getting into the area so people can fill up their cars or generators or so on?
There are efforts, and I know there's actually like a temporary location for emergency vehicles. I'll turn it over to our Commissioner of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, because there's a tremendous effort that's being done to ensure that we can provide gas and diesel for vehicles. Or William, whichever one.
Yeah, needless to say, the delivery, that's an essential service. The individuals and the companies that are associated with that know that that's the case. So if there's any issues at all, they're communicating that, or should be, to the Emergency Operations Center, and we can provide them with whatever assistance that they need. I do know when I was coming in very early this morning, I saw tanker trucks out doing their refueling. But it's the same thing too with some of our providers, Wegmans and Tops. It's the reason why you need to stay off the road in these impacted areas, because we need to be able to get those resources to where they need to be so that the shelves are in fact stocked and ready to go. There's plenty of product. There should be no panic. There should be no rushing to get your bread and your eggs, but get out there, get whatever you need once these shelves are stocked, especially in the areas within the city. So we've got great working relationships with the leadership at Wegmans and Tops, the major providers, as well as the fuel agencies that are out there to be able to get into it. But as I pointed out yesterday, some of these gas stations are no longer functional in certain areas because they have no capacity to be able to have the equipment to pump the fuel that's already in their pumps, because they were looted and actually had the capacity to be able to energize those pumps eliminated as a result of that. So these are the type of things that we work through, coordinate logistically with all of our partners here, the Sheriff's Office, the State Police, our Parks folks, as well as the Department of Public Works. It's a matter of communicating, connecting that, and then having motivating the resources to get them to wherever the need is. But I have not heard necessarily from anyone that there's an issue getting their product to any of the gas stations.
And I can add, after the height of the storm, we were getting requests from local municipalities to help them with their trucks for diesel, and we were getting specialized deliveries to communities that may have been running out so that their trucks could stay on the road at all times. Ron Haney, Spectrum.
Yes, good morning, County Executive. Can you speak to the number of people who have been displaced to shelters, including those who were rescued from their cars, and how long you expect them to remain in those shelters and how long those shelters may be open?
I can't talk about the full number because there were so many shelters across the region. There were multiple ones in the city of Buffalo. There were each town in a small city like Lackawanna had set up shelters. I've heard that many of the shelters are starting to, if people leave, especially now that driving bans have been lifted. I cannot talk to the total number, other than to say I thank all of our partners who opened up shelters and warming centers and were there to ensure that these individuals were cared for. I don't know if we have like a number of cots that were delivered, or
We could always get that.
we'll get that information and see if we can figure it out. Are there any, I see we have 3 call-in users, so I'm not certain if they have any questions. Are there any call-in users who have a comment? Or question? If not, this will end the press briefing for today. We may provide one later if necessary, but we do not have one scheduled as of right now. I just want to thank everybody for their continued observance of the driving ban in the city of Buffalo. For those that are, it really means a lot. Thank you. It makes a big difference. We are recovering from one of the worst storms we will ever potentially see, as we all know, with unfortunately the most deaths that we've ever had in a storm as a result of Mother Nature's wrath. And I know it, as I said, this came right during the holiday season. It was not the Christmas, not the Hanukkah, not the Kwanzaa that people would normally be celebrating now. We wanted, and we will never forget it. So the people of Erie County, the people of Western New York who've been there, because this was a storm that affected Niagara County, Orleans, Genesee as well, parts of Chautauqua. I just want to thank you for all that you've done, your perseverance to get to this point. And once again, offer my deepest condolences to all who've lost a loved one as a result of the worst storm that we've ever seen. Take care, be safe and well to all.